Welcome back, baseball fans, to a special look at the four-year carryover draft headquarters. And so this is what I'm looking at when I'm doing these drafts to give you some idea of how the draft is organized. So, just a quick overview. These cards here are the actual teams in the four-year carryover league for 78 to 81. And the Expos are drafting 1st through 16th, and then teams 17 to 32. And I just pull them out, and then after opening up their stack, I then have to consider who are they going to take. And these boxes are individual years. This is the 1978, the 1979, the 1980, and the 1981. And that is all the cards available. And the first 4 rounds of the draft, teams are taking best player available from each of the 4 years in any order. The order is best player available. So through 4 rounds of the draft, every team should have a player coming out of each of the 4 boxes. If you have the rights to 2 players in the same year, you can announce them at the same time. And let's say, for instance, you take a guy from 1979 and you have 2 guys from 1979. So the way the draft works is the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds. 81 is the 5th round. The 6th round is 80. The 7th round is 79, and the 8th round is 78. So if you're taking a guy in the first 4 rounds in, say, 1979, you're announcing simultaneously your 7th round pick, since you have the rights to the guy and you know nobody else can take him. So it speeds up the draft so that I can simply, when I know I've got a protected player who can't be stolen or taken by another team, I'll just put him into the draft results quicker, and that speeds up the overall draft, which is what you want. You want an efficient, quick draft, competitive draft. And I also want to show that now that the first 4 rounds of the draft are over with, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds of the draft are very efficient because we can concentrate on individual boxes. So, again, your timeline begins here, 78, 79, 80, and 81. So your 5th round of the draft is all from the year of 1981. All the 5th round picks. So I can close these other boxes for the time being as I draft in the 5th round. Then this box is put away and won't be touched again. We go to the 6th round, we do the same thing. We go to the 7th round, we go to the 8th round. The 8 rounds of the draft would then be done. We can pause. We're not going to have a finished draft at that point because teams are still have improved players, still making trades, and we have what I call the token round of the draft. So the other thing I want to take a look at is knowing that why 1981? Why the furthest year out for a 5th round pick? And here's your logic. Your 5th round player, you need an impact player. You need him, obviously, to be better than your 8th round player. So I get the widest, biggest talent pool, the newest year. The biggest pool available for your 5th round pick. Talent pools are going to get smaller, smaller, and really small. So in the year of 78, this is, if you can kind of get an idea, it's hard to do, but if you look at the amount of cards here, right, and compare it to here, that's because these 78 cards are already in the carryover league, a big chunk of them, right? So that's why your talent pool is smaller here. And the reason why that's your 8th round pick is because if you're going to have trouble finding the last player on your roster, your 20th player, utility infielder, backup catcher, long man in the bullpen, defensive substitution. If you don't get somebody you like, you only have them for 1 year. So you're willing to go 1 year with a player you're not comfortable with versus making a 4-year mistake. So that's why you go with your biggest pool of players. You should be able to find a quality player in the 5th round here versus a weaker player in the 8th round there. Also, if you look at the addendum, these of course are stored by carryover team name, but you got this chunk of players there is big, and there it's big, and it starts to get small, and it is almost non-existent. These, the red banded guys, are guys kicked into retirement even though they still play baseball. I just kicked them into retirement because they weren't productive baseball players. And that, of course, occurred immediately after 1977 and 1978. The retirement list gets smaller and smaller because the guys retired. Look, you still see some guys hanging in there by 1980. You might, I don't know if there's any retired guys still in 1981. The yellow band here are waivered guys. Now, obviously, in the first year, each team has to put 2 guys on waivers. So this draft starts with exactly 64 guys on waivers. It's exactly 64 when the draft starts. In the future years, the yellow band is, I don't have yellow on it, but it would be right there in this case. And the yellow band is there. It gets smaller and smaller again. And then, of course, you have in the last stack, now that it's been 4 years of drafting the first box, these are all the hitters and these are all the pitchers who have not been in the league yet. And for good reason, they're not very good players. But now might be the chance, because you're only going to get them for 1 year. You don't mind suffering with a bad player if it's just for 1 year. You have that same consideration for 79. In the years of 80 and 81, there are no players like that because those cards are stored here so that they have a protection. The entire rookie class is protected. In the second year, you get your second year protection. And by second year protection, I mean, let's take a look at Toronto for a moment. I know there's a couple things to indicate here. Barry Bunnell is a keeper, but he hasn't been taken yet in the 4th round. And through the 4 rounds of the draft, he hasn't been taken. After the first 4 rounds of the draft, he is available to be taken by anybody. Toronto did not make that move, so now they lose the protection on Bunnell. So the Toronto can still take him, of course, but anybody can now. He's a keeper that wasn't renewed yet. But you also have these players here were rookies last year that weren't taken. And so that's why they're still in Toronto's card set instead of being over here. Because they're really good players, it's only their second year of draft eligibility. You can only take 2 players per year. So a good player like Damaso Garcia wasn't taken last year. He might be taken this year, and this gives Toronto some more protection. They get 2 years of protection on a rookie. So, and that's where you see they might take Damaso Garcia if he's available in the draft. So, put that away. Hard to do with a camera at the same time. Also, there are about 7 players in that consideration of Bunnell, players that were not kept, who become free agent. We also know that there are teams that are going to finish this draft with 18 or 19 or 20 players. So there's a lot of interesting twists and turns in the draft. But I wanted to give you an idea of what the draft headquarters looks like. I have this, plus I have the computer spreadsheet tracking all the moves. And I usually do a round one evening for a couple hours. So the first round took a couple hours earlier in the week. And the second round takes about a couple hours, etc. And today I'm going to have a nice long day and try and do all the... It starts to speed up later in the draft. I'm going to try and spend an entire day and do rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that is my overview of the later part of the draft. We'll follow this up with draft results and then begin the token round and show you how picks are awarded in the token round of the draft. Thanks for checking it out. We'll see you next time.